Hi, everyone. We're here. It's I'm Barbara Shor, veterinarian and animal communicator, and I'm with Donna Lozito, who's a homeopath and animal communicator. And we're going to be speaking about the divine order of our lives. Quite a big topic, but I think it's real appropriate for the times. So I'm going to let Donna start.
Let's refer back to our conversation. I'm Donna Lozito, as you said, and thank you for having this discussion with me today. And we were talking prior to, this conversation about how the divine order of our lives is in constant play, and how we are so not aware of that. And while we may know that, to be cognizant of that in the face of difficulty, I think, is the name of the game for life. And how do we do that? And so that kind of opens up, a myriad of ways that plays out in an individual's life.
Yeah. We had quite a good little conversation before we started this about the path of our lives, the trajectory of our lives. And, sometimes it was not easy. We're on a difficult planet, to say the least, and these are difficult times. So, how do you make sense of these challenges that we all face? How do you make terms with some of the really difficult things? And what we were talking about is that it takes looking back and seeing a higher picture to say, oh yeah, I understand. I understand why that happened to me and why I did that or why someone did that to me. And the important part is, what did I do about it and what did I learn from it? Because there are huge lessons.
I think a really key piece to hear, because some people can't take this in, but it's the people don't do things to us. We create every single incident in our lives so that we can evolve on a soul level. And our conditioning has been that you did this to me, and the pointing the finger, when in fact the higher part of ourselves create everything that happens in our lives based on the choice we make to even come here in the first place. When I get hung up in the difficulties of life, and believe me, everyone, especially at this juncture, is really having a time. I try to focus on the bigger picture of the journey of the soul, that this is just and that's coming into that now, which, I think when I was younger might have been impossible to kind of to get my head around, but I'm seeing that this is just a snippet of a mass of the endless journey of the soul. And how can I make this aspect really count towards the evolution of my being? That's where I kind of I try to keep my focus. Don't get me wrong. It's not set in stone that way, but that's something that I really try to remind myself when the going gets rough.
Yeah. And I think what started this whole conversation was a couple weeks ago when we were on a call with the group, and I was just recovering from like 2 months of being sick. And it wasn't fun or easy. There was a lot of pain involved and frustration. But what I came out of it with was, wow, I can really take a break. I can relax. And in the past, I've just pushed myself so hard. If I'm a little tired, I just keep going. And it doesn't work. Your body can get too tired. So these 2 months of just reading books and sometimes watching TV and hanging out and not getting a lot of stuff done. Now what I'm discovering is if I start getting tired during the day, instead of pushing my way through it and driving myself, I'll say, "Okay, it's really okay to relax. It's really okay." And I will sit down for a half an hour, and read a book, or even sometimes during the day, I'll even watch TV or something just to get my mind relaxed. And it's not even that I can there's a million summits on now that have so much information, and I love those, but sometimes my little brain gets fried, and it's time to just calm down and get quiet, and then I'm okay. So I think we're so trained and conditioned to keep going and keep going, and it's not always helpful.
It's not, and I think that we each have our own particular version of that because why what is that, where does that originate? What creates that? And that for me, from what I see, is originates in childhood. You know, this need to be seen, this need to have value, this need to, this, coming from a very traumatized existence as a child, all that was born of that, and how has that progressed in this healing, and I feel very fortunate that I had the wherewithal to actually make it a point that my healing, my main focus. And the animals, that's why they're here. That's what they do.
Well, you know what's interesting to me, Donna, is you talk about your horse who's looking over your shoulder there, and how she really taught you all these things. That was the beginning, wasn't it?
I think the beginning, with the passion that I had for horses, with for and this is all in hindsight, because I just had this unspeakable passion that I couldn't describe, but I can describe the reason now, because this guy opened my heart in a way that no human being could have done. I had no idea. I mean, I was so shut down, and this guy's just changed that. And so he opened the gateway for me to walk through and go forth and heal.
Mm.
He taught me and became my my guide, the only thing or being I ever trusted, and until I actually learned to trust myself. And it's just a journey, and I see that a lot in business and working with people and their animals, and that there's this divine order, this divine purpose in each and every relationship, even with the animals. It's
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
cool.
It's so fascinating when you figure out why you're together.
Yeah,
There's always a bigger purpose than what you're usually aware of. And
correct.
my experience with the animals is they are so loving and so wise. We just have no idea. I mean, Donna and I have both been communicating with animals for about the same amount of time, over 30 years. And I'm still in awe when I speak to animals at just what they know and who they are.
I say it over and over to clients. It's like, let's face it, they are smarter than we are. And that's a hard one for a human to take. Sometimes you get that look like, but in the scheme of things, are they not wiser?
Look what we're doing to this planet. Duh. Yeah, yeah. So I think that if you really take a look at your life, like I've done a number of times, why did I go to vet school in the first place? I don't work as a veterinarian anymore and haven't for over 30 years. Why did I go? And I had to look back at that. Oh, it's for credibility. It's for so many reasons, just learning the ins and outs of animals and people and, these things that you think, why the heck did I do that? Or why am I doing this thing? And when you can really go inside, it's all a matter of going inside and look at the bigger picture. It's like, oh, now I get it. Now I get it. It makes sense. Yeah.
Totally. And that is the divine order. I mean, when you think about it in that light, as horrible as things are in our world today, that too is in divine order.
Hmm.
It just is. And so I try not to get I keep my head down and I try not to focus on that, but that's the horror show of what the planet has become is too in divine order.
You know what I've come to see, and it helps me get through some of this world stuff, is that a lot of times there's this tremendous chaos and breakdown before something new can enter,
That's where
before
we
the
are.
dawn. And that's where we are. I think the old systems that just don't work anymore are collapsing and making way for something new and much better. And so what also happens is when the status quo is being threatened, those who are attached to that way of being fight for their lives, and it gets to be really nasty. And that's what I see is happening. It's
But that too is in divine order. So make that makes
exactly.
that makes it more palatable to, to the evolution of time.
Mhm.
It's a switch from Piscean to Aquarian. I mean, it's a different age now that we're moving into. Piscean was pretty brutal.
Yeah. So how can we apply this to people's lives? We're talking to animal professionals who've dedicated their lives to helping animals, and um, how does this divine order fit into that, do you think?
I think that really what it takes is for each individual to really be in observance of the daily of their lives, and sometimes come back in the evening and see, where is that conditioning? Where is that truth? Where do I fit in that space? And start asking questions of your self and higher self, because within are the answers. They're there. And I say start to question if you're so inclined, because else the suffering just builds on itself
Yeah,
and it becomes a story as opposed to a purposeful event.
yeah,
And that's really hard when you're working with animals, because you see stuff that is unspeakable. And how could this be? But let's remember that each and every being has an agreement to be on this planet for a specific purpose,
yes,
even if it is that.
yeah.
And that's so hard to, I mean, and I find myself victim of that as well. But that's what I come back to when I go out on a limb with that. Wow, how could this be? Why? Because I have trouble with the suffering.
I do too. I do too. And I just want to go in there and punch somebody, or worse, and you can't. And then I think to realize that there's this divine play at work, and it's not my business to save everybody and everything.
Therein lies the key. And let's also remember that the being that we don't know what the karmic agreement of that animal was if we don't specifically ask, and we just walk by suffering. And believe me, sometimes I struggle with that too. When even watching nature, how brutal it is.
Exactly.
And then, but in that moment to stop, it's only in the nighttime when I go, oh yeah, I did that again. Okay, next time, and each time it gets better, but there's this realization of I'm not in control of that. That person chose this path just like I chose mine, that being that horse, it's a very difficult thing I think, for us humans to really embrace.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's not an easy place to be, is it? But there's so much love on the other side. And
I
if we
think
can
that's
just
true.
focus more on the love and the elevation in consciousness that's actually taking place, overall. I
Right.
think that's really helpful. Yeah. So thank you, Donna. Is there anything else that we need to
No, I think it was, it's just really nice to talk about it in snippets so that, it's conversation makes a little bit of a mark and then we move on and carry on because, human condition is, yeah, we'll talk about it. Yeah, we'll realize it. And then we go back to the same, you know what I mean? It's the human condition.
and it's a practice. It's
It's a
really a
practice,
practice
right?
to really go inside and ask the right questions and do the healing that needs to be done so that we
Listen
can
and
be.
listen and listen to your heart
Mhm. Yeah.
or your animal.
Or your animals, they know a lot, don't they?
Yeah, because when you can't listen to your heart, and I can speak from experience because it's so shut down, you listen to your animal. And that's what I did.
Thank you, Donna.
You're very welcome. Pleasure.
Bye, everyone.